Hello. Welcome to This Week in Politics. It occurred to me this week that while I was doing another program for the Right Wing Reverend, and it occurred to me that we have so many scandals in our government in Washington that it's hard to keep them straight. I've never seen a more corrupt government. Um, I mean, Hillary alone has probably got a half a dozen jailable offenses to her credit that I could wheel off the name top of my head. Obama was involved in a couple. The FBI we're going to cover. The Justice Department has been complicit in some. Uh, Several other organizations within the government have been guilty of illegal overextension of their hands into our lives, like the EPA overextended their uh, legal mandate when it came to regulations against several industries, specifically energy, specifically coal, and it just goes on and on. And so when I thought about, you know, the person that isn't a junkie like I am for news to keep it straight, sitting at home, 30 minutes a night watching the news that can't keep it all straight, I decided, most of the right wing media is keeping track of all of the Hillary scandals. So most people probably have a decent idea about that. But I don't think many people are paying too close of attention to what's going on with our FBI. And here's what's bad about that. If we as a country do not have faith in the top policing branch of our government, then what follows is chaos. What follows is banana republic, where bribes rule, politics is in charge, and the rule of law goes out the window. Now, what is it going to take to fix these? I don't know. But I do know that they need to be called out by name, uh, not just the crimes themselves. That I'm going to do today. And to the best of my ability, I'm going to put names to them. But for the ones that don't, the ones that I don't know about, the names that I have no access to, all I can do is uh, try to take the broad field of the crimes that we know them and narrow them down so that we don't have a big conglomeration of Clinton, FBI, CIA, Justice, EPA, IRS. There was another one where there was a lot of corruption, and have them just in a big wadded up ball mess so that nobody is held accountable. We need to break those apart, and we can have the Hillary scandals over here, the Lois Lerner and the IRS scandal over here. We can have the EPA scandal over here. And then today, what I want to do is I want to take the ones that are strictly the FBI and I want to pull those out, pull those threads away from the other scandals, and have the FBI be responsible and held accountable just for what the FBI has done. What I wanted to call this show today was the FBI scandals, frauds, and misdemeanors, which would be perfect for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down the scandals as I see them and talk a little bit about each one so that you will understand why it is a crime, a fraud, or a misdemeanor. Now, the first one and is going to mention Clinton. I mean, as I said, they've all been intertwined, but I'm going to try to pull that apart so we can see what the FBI actually had to do with this. The the Clinton emails. Now, we know from Comey's testimony in front of the Senate committee that Comey had declared her innocent before any testimony was given. That means the payoff and the fix was in on Comey. We know for a fact that there were at least 7 different pieces of equipment on that server. She turned over one and they destroyed 6 or 7, or tried to. Even the ones that they destroyed, they used a chemical called bleach bit to erase what was on there, the emails they did not turn over. Also involved in this scandal was, we know that there was a Bill Clinton meeting on a tarmac with Loretta Lynch. We know that the next day she had a meeting with Comey and said not to say that they were under investigation, but there was an incident. So again, we know the fix was in from the Clinton Foundation to the head of the Justice Department. So there we have 2 very easily provable, 2 jailable offenses of payoffs. Now, it may not have been monetary payoff, but there was payoff to Comey and to Lynch. I don't know how else you can say that. We know that to be true. Then there was the Comey fraud. We know for a fact, because Comey said this under oath in front of the same committee. We know that he made notes and recordings from his private meetings with the president. Okay, that at the very least is a violation of the president's privacy, but it is also a breach of protocol, and you can't record private conversations with the president and then make it public. That is illegal. So we know that he did that. We know that he copied these down in the form of a memo on FBI stationery, on FBI time, and then he took those memos and he gave them to a friend of his and asked his friend to leak them to the newspaper. I believe it was a Washington Post, but I won't swear to that. Now, we know all of this because Comey said so under oath. And when asked why he did that, the purpose, he said, was so that they could get a special prosecutor to go after Donald Trump and to remove him from office. By any stretch of the imagination, that's treason. When somebody in the government actively uses his power and position and does illegal things to remove a duly elected official from the president from his office, that is treason. Even if you took treason off of the table, okay, we know that he did all of these things. Everything he has done and admitted to so far is illegal. You can't do any of that. You're not allowed to leak material to the Washington Post. You're not allowed to record the president's conversations. You're not allowed to transfer that to memos. And you're not allowed to do any of that. But the purpose of the whole thing, just like every other scandal that has anything to do with Russia, the whole goal here is to remove Trump from office. That is treason. Anybody that is engaged in that, at the very least, should be prosecuted for sedition. But in my opinion, if you are going about, there's no difference in doing that than if he had taken the military and stormed into the White House and pulled Trump out under force in handcuffs. There's no difference. This one is just going to be bloodless, take a little bit longer, And that's wrong. You can't do that. So we know that Comey, in and of himself, is guilty of several jailable offenses, uh, and he was the head of the FBI. Also, under Comey, while he was the head of the FBI, he participated in something called what I call the P file, or as everybody else is calling it, uh, the dossier. Now, here's what happened. They had a backup plan in case Trump won the election. The Democrats and the Clinton organization and the Democratic National Committee both helped pay for a foreign agent to draw up a dossier against a political partner or a political opposition, and put the dossier together and bring it to the States. That is illegal. You can't do that. You cannot involve a foreign agent in any part of uh, our election. The FBI cannot have anything to do with opposition research in an election. They are supposed to be apolitical. Both of those are illegal. You can't do any one of those, and we know that both of those were done. There's no question at all. Then they took this P file and, through hook and crook, got it leaked to the press. Okay, again, you can't do that. Now, everything that was in this P file was a lie. It was made up. Not one thing has been proven accurate. But they used this file then to get FISA warrants to spy on Trump and his administration. Again, that is illegal. You cannot use made up garbage uh, to get FISA warrants against an opposition party. So we know so far that in this one scandal, they paid a foreign agent, they leaked it to the press, they used the lies in this to abuse the FISA warrant process. Then the videos they got from that, they unmasked, which means they knew everything that everybody in the Trump administration said and did, and they used that to eliminate one of Trump's appointees from office. All of those things are illegal. You can't do any of those. Comey was the head of the FBI at the time, and he knowingly did this. He knew about the P file. He knew about who paid for it. He knew that Steele was the name of the uh, MI6 agent from England. He knew that it was all lies and made up. He shopped it around trying to get somebody to print it, and they wouldn't because they knew it was lies. Then they used a backdoor method to get it to the president, and once the president knew about it, then it became news. Then they printed it all over the place, and they used that to abuse the FISA warrant system. And then from that illegal information, they unmasked and spied on the Trump administration officials. We know all of this to be true, and all of it is illegal. And from that, they got the uh, general counsel investigator Mueller. His whole go get Trump thing was fruit of the poison tree. It was all illegal. They got the illegal P file they used for the FISA warrants, the leaked memo they got from Comey that got the special investigator. It's all lies. The whole thing is lies. The whole investigation, everything that came from it, all the information that came from any of the FISA warrants, that is all fruit of a poisonous tree, and it should all be gotten rid of. And then they should go after these people that are involved. And that includes Clinton, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was in charge of the DNC at the time, Steele, the MI6 agent, Simpson, the head of GPS, which was the company that hired Steele to write the dossier, the legal firm employed by the Clinton Foundation and paid for by Clinton Foundation plus the DNC, that legal firm should be prosecuted. Everybody involved in this should be prosecuted. The next one, the Benghazi fraud. We know for a fact that as the election was coming up in 2012, the U.S. Embassy was overrun in Benghazi. We know that Clinton knew about it. We knew that Clinton had been harassed by the ambassador there for more security for months, and she ignored him and turned him down. We know for a fact that Clinton and all of her minions claimed that the uprising was started by a silly video in another country. And the Obama administration, the Clinton people, and everybody involved was all espousing the same thing. It was and we know that's a lie. Under oath in the committee looking into the Benghazi thing, and I watched those hearings, and watching Clinton on there, it was very, very sleazy. Trey Gowdy did a nice job of painting her into a corner, and she's very sleazy. She is very much a snake. She would roll her eyes. At one point, he pushed her, and she threw her hands up and said that very famous line, "What difference does it make at this point?" Which just goes to prove how absolutely clueless she is. If it was her relatives, her husband, her friends, her family that was killed in that uprising, it would make a huge difference. And the reason she has skated so far is because the swamp is protecting her. We know for a fact that Clinton was directly responsible for those people being killed in Benghazi. We know for a fact that the lack of security was squarely on Clinton's shoulders. We also know that she has refused to accept any responsibility for that. We know that she has lied. We know that she has lied under oath, and still nothing is being done. The FBI is complicit in this because they also were, at the time, espousing this phony narrative that the uprising was started by a video in another country. Now, the reason they were all doing this is because there was an election coming up and they did not want the boat rocked. If it came out that Clinton was in any way responsible, that would have looked bad on Obama, and it might have had an effect on the election. Therefore, not only was Clinton involved, but so was Obama, and so was the FBI in covering up the Benghazi thing, and it has still not gotten out. The full extent of it is still, even though the facts are there, we know what was and wasn't done. We know when it was and wasn't done. There are some questions still remaining, but the facts and what we know that the FBI was responsible for and did, and nobody has been punished. That is another one that needs to be looked into. More currently with the FBI, there was a higher up in the FBI named Stroke, and he was having an affair with his girlfriend. Her last name is Page. There was 50,000 emails. Magically, now just from the couple of emails that they have gotten, we know that there was something called a secret society that was within the FBI that had higher ups, part of this secret society, whose goal was to overthrow the Trump administration. This we know for sure. We know that they were having an affair. We know that they were having these discussions inside one of the higher ups' offices in the FBI. As soon as we were getting closer to getting more of the FBI, more of the emails, the FBI magically lost all the FBI or all the emails again. I mean, how many times can you fall back on that? A couple of days later, they came out and said they found them, but now they're going through and they are redacting all the information that is going to be anything. They're in the process of CYA, and then they're going to release pieces of paper that have black ink all over them, and there will be no more information. They are involved in a huge cover-up on this. I hope some way, somehow, WikiLeaks can get a hold of those emails and release them like they did Clinton. If it had not been for WikiLeaks, we would not have found out about Benghazi. There's a lot we would not have found out about. So let's hope that WikiLeaks or somebody close can get those emails from the stroke page 50,000 emails and get those to uh, WikiLeaks so that we can get those out and released. Otherwise, it will fall into the swamp in the FBI, and we will never ever know the extent to what happened. But even from what we know that there are 50,000 emails that are being used to cover up an attempted overthrow of the Trump administration. That's a huge problem. And as we look at each one of these frauds and scandals that are coming out, they all have something in common. And that is to A, protect the Democrat liberal administration, or to hurt and overthrow the Trump administration. Every one of these scandals. And the FBI is supposed to be apolitical. They are not supposed to have anything to do with politics. They are supposed to enforce the laws of the land. Period. Another fraud that they were involved in is the loss of emails of Lois Lerner. Lois Lerner was the head of a department for the IRS in Ohio during the um, 2012 election. During that time, people seeking to have a 501c3 organization would go into the IRS office, file their paperwork, and the way it's supposed to work is it goes through the channels, it gets approved, you get your number, and you go about your business. Uh, it shouldn't take, I don't know, 30, 60 days. She was sitting them on her desk and emailing not just the IRS office, but the FBI and the White House. We know this to be true. Um, and she was being encouraged to do that. Now, why is that bad? Because during the election, a lot of these companies that wanted these tax exempt statuses could not go about affecting anything in the uh, election until they received that certification. If they don't receive the certification, they can't help Republicans in the election. And the only ones that she was pulling out were ones that had anything to do with uh, Tea Party, Republican, Christian. If it had anything to do with any of those organizations, they sat on her desk and nothing was done with them. And the people at the home office at the IRS knew about it, and the Obama administration, including Obama, knew about it. Now, you say that has to do with the IRS, but guess what? The emails the FBI were supposed to have, they lost all the emails. Now, the ones to the IRS, they still had, but the emails that went to the FBI, the emails that went to the White House magically disappeared. Now, we know for a fact that Lois Lerner went before the committee and lied. We know this. We also know that the FBI once again lost the emails. Now, in the meantime, now if you and I lied to a congressional committee, you are held in contempt. And when you are held in contempt, you go to jail. That's usually not open for debate. That's just what happens. If you lied to the committee, you go to jail. Lois Lerner didn't go to jail, and we know that she lied. And the Republicans all came out asking for her to go to jail, and that nobody would do it. Who do you think has the power to make that happen? The president. But in the time that has happened, Lois Lerner has retired, not removed. She retired from the IRS. She receives a full pension. Uh, she's not in jail. She's not held in contempt. She just walked away, wiped her hands clean, walked away, and nothing has happened. Even though we know that she lied to the Senate committee, she had an undue influence in a national election, and that the FBI withheld, or should I say, lost critical emails to the White House and to the FBI. I talked earlier about the Mueller investigation as a fraud. The whole thing is a fruit of a poisonous tree. From the beginning, the concept, the file, the FISAs, the leaked memos, the appointment, his staff, the whole thing is a great big fat fraud instigated by the FBI on the Trump administration and the American people. And here's how I want you to think about this. That may sound like government in squabbling, but the whole process, remember I said it's either to help the liberals or to hurt Trump. When I say hurt Trump, here's what I mean. We as the American people elected Donald Trump. And this handful of crooks is using their power illegally to overturn what we, the people, have already voted. We voted. We wanted Trump to go in there and kick over tables and drain the swamp. The swamp is rebelling by using illegal tactics. They're trying to overthrow what we, the people, have already elected. That's why this is so critical that we know exactly who is doing what and how illegal that is, so we can know who to prosecute. Now, the average person probably does not know about the next scandal I'm going to talk about. Back when Mueller was not the special prosecutor, but he used to be the head of the FBI. And Comey was number 2 at the FBI, okay? Clinton was Secretary of State, and the Clinton Foundation was raking in hundreds of millions of dollars, okay? That's how the stage is set. Russia wants to buy and own 20% of our uranium in this country. Now, why is that significant? Because uranium is needed in making nuclear weapons, and we are not self-sufficient in uranium. We have to import a lot of the uranium that we have. But Putin wants to corner the market on uranium. Who can blame him? I'd want to do the same thing. So, here's the sequence of events that happens. Putin tells Bill Clinton, come and give a speech, I'll give you $500,000. Clinton makes a speech. Clinton puts $500,000 in his pocket. Then he says, go make a speech in this one country, Uzbekistan, I think, and I'll give you another $500,000. So he goes make a speech there. Clinton gets another $500,000 in his pocket. Now, why is that significant? because the leader of Uzbekistan wanted to use Bill Clinton's clout to strengthen his hand. What he gave Russia was the rights to dig for uranium in his country. All the uranium he could find, he could keep. Why is that significant? Because Putin then used that to help buy a company in Canada, a mining company in Canada. Now, with that Canadian company, Putin now has the front that he needs to come in and make a bid to buy our uranium. So, Clinton now sits on a committee that needs to sign off on this deal. As this deal is going through, Putin is paying off trucking companies for inside information. He is paying off the company in Canada, and he is making a bid at just the right time to just the right committee to get it through the Clinton committee. He's made the bid. It's been accepted. Now all it needs is approval. Now, at the time that the approval is being done is when Putin says to Bill, come give a speech, I'll give you $500,000. There's part of a bribe. Then the company in Canada, as this bill is sitting in committee where Clinton has to approve it, gives, are you ready for this? $140 million to the Clinton Foundation. So they've got $140 million for the foundation. They got another $500,000 to put in their pocket from a speech. And Clinton and her cronies in this committee sign this thing off. Now, that also has to be signed off on by Obama. Now, while all this was going on, and here's where I'm going to tie it back to the FBI, while all of this was going on, Mueller and the FBI knew about all of this. They had an insider in one of the trucking companies supplying information about all that was going on. They knew about the payoffs. They knew about Putin. They knew about the buying of the speech payoffs, the buying of the uranium. They knew about it all. And when it came to the committee, they said nothing to Congress. They said nothing to the committee. They said nothing to the Obama administration. They let the whole thing go through. And now the Russians own 20% of the American uranium. I mean, how else can you define giving aid and comfort to the enemy? When I reported on this in a show, I said before, I said, instead of saying uranium, what if I said Clinton sold 20% of our tanks to the Russians? Would that be treason? Yep. If I said Clinton sold 20% of our nuclear submarines to Russia, would that be treason? Yep. What if I said Clinton sold 25% of our artillery to Russia? Would that be treason? Yep. So why is it any different if I say Clinton sold 25% of our uranium to Russia? Isn't that treason? Uranium is what we have to make nuclear weapons. She just depleted our nuclear stockpile by 20%, and she made $141 million off of the deal. I don't know how else you call that but treason. And the FBI knew the whole time. They knew every detail. They never said a word. They were complicit. Andrew McCabe. Here's another one. Andrew McCabe, who is the assistant FBI director, his wife works for GPS. GPS is the company that hired the MI6 agent Steele to write the dossier. You see how incestuous this is? No, I'm sorry. I have that name wrong. I apologize. Andrew McCabe, who is the assistant FBI director, his wife ran for the Senate. I believe it was in Virginia, and she received $500,000 for her failed Senate run. And guess who she received the $500,000 from? The Clinton Foundation, and she received it through Terry McAuliffe. Terry McAuliffe used to work for Bill Clinton in the White House. Terry McAuliffe at the time was the governor in Virginia. And this lady's husband is the assistant FBI director. So the FBI, who knew about Fusion GPS, who knew about the bribery, who knew about the unmasking, who knew about the spying, who knew about all of that stuff that was going on, his wife decides to run for the Senate, and she lost, by the way. And his wife receives $500,000. Wow. Okay. We talked about the Loretta Lynch incident, not investigation into the Clinton campaign during the election. We also know that, and I can't think of the guy's name, Stroke. This same guy was the guy that that convinced Comey to change the verbiage in his memo that changed the word from grossly negligent to grossly negligent would have been the verbiage needed to get a conviction on her handling of her emails. But Stroke convinced Comey to change the verbiage from grossly negligent to something much less, and I don't remember what the verbiage was. Like, you know, not negligent, but something. Once again, having his fingertips where it shouldn't be, and once again, covering for Clinton, and the swamp is covering for one of its alligators. And we talked earlier about the secret society within the FBI of higher ups whose goal is to do nothing else than to overthrow a duly elected official, that would be Donald Trump, out of office. Now, I didn't count. Let me go through and count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. There are 16 frauds, scandals, and misdemeanors done by the FBI under the previous administration and by holdouts in this current administration. The people that are guilty of all of this is all Obama appointees, all holdovers, all out to get Trump. And they all need to be prosecuted. They all need to go to jail. All of them. As I went through there, I tried to put names to it. I tried to be as factually accurate as I could be, but I wanted it all tied to the FBI. Now, when they are tied to the FBI, we saw very clearly that the Clinton Foundation kind of had a spider web around that. So they're involved in a lot of it. But there are other peripheral parts. There's the Russia angle. There's the swamp angle getting paid off. There's bribery going on from around the world. There's payoffs being made to the Clinton Foundation, but in the center of it is the FBI, who acts as a cover for all of this corruption going on. The people at the core, the people that are corrupt, is the FBI, the Justice Department, and the CIA, but mainly FBI. That's what all of this corruption has in common. You know, everybody on the right is trying to make it the Clinton is at the center. That's not true. It's the FBI at the center of it. Clintons have a huge spider web that cover a lot of it. That's true. But there was the bribery from the Russians. There was the bribery to different people within different committees. There was the Obama administration going along with it. There was the IRS part influencing the election. There was the EPA part of it. There was the Justice Department part of it. And all of that in the center of it was the FBI. And that is why anything that has to come from the FBI, we will never know the truth. These emails that they magically found, we're not going to get anything out of that unless somebody manages to get that to WikiLeaks, because that is the swamp, and they will do nothing that is going to hurt their swamp members. Clinton will never go to jail unless something gets broken outside of the FBI. Never going to happen, because they are not going to turn on their own. And so you ask, well, why are they protecting him so much? Well, I have a couple of theories, but I have no proof. I believe that some of those millions and hundreds of millions of dollars that went to the Clinton Foundation, I think paid off a lot of the people inside the FBI and the Justice Department, and then they're using blackmail to keep them in line, to protect the liberals. And also, the Obama administration went through there and cleaned house in all of those departments and put in nothing but left-leaning liberals. So their inclination is to protect their own anyway. But the higher ups, I believe, are paid off and then blackmailed. That's my opinion. I can't prove that. But remember, the center is not the Clintons. The center is the FBI. Now, can I prove that? No. It is only because that's the way that I see it. That's the only thing that makes logical sense. The Clintons, if the Clintons were at the center, the swamp would have eventually gotten them. But that's not true. The swamp is protecting her and has from the beginning. Now, nobody's willing to throw their own tail on the line unless there's something in it for them, and the FBI has done that. So there's something in there for them because they are at the center. They are covering themselves. If they turn on Clinton, Clinton will turn back on them, and then there will be a bloodbath. And nobody wants that. I think that's what's going on. All right. Well, what did I say? 19? 19 frauds, crimes, and misdemeanors by the FBI. A damn shame. Or a damnable shame. I hope at some point, and it's probably not going to be in my lifetime, but I hope at some point these people are held to account. And if nothing else, at least the truth get out and be told. Now, I like to end each show by going over some current events. And the reason I do this is because I've been alive long enough to know that when liberals go back to not write history, but rewrite history, a lot of times they mix facts and timelines up to suit their own needs or timelines that they want to achieve. So I've just put in a couple so that anybody that wants to go back and check in future time can say, oh yeah, I remember that happened on this week. That's why the title of all of my programs is always a date. So we know exactly what week these things happen. So here's some of the current events. I got 4 of them I want to look at this week. The first one, Trump says he wants to be interviewed by Special Investigator Mueller. Now, anybody in politics that knows anything about special investigators is yelling and screaming, don't do that, that's suicide. And here's the reason. Special investigators are trained to trap you. Even if you're innocent, they will trap you to get you to make a procedural error. And when you do, they call that a lie, and now they can, even if it doesn't hold up in court, it doesn't have to. Impeachment is a political process, not a legal process. And Trump needs to remember that. The second one is that doctor who used to be on the Olympic Committee was sentenced today to 175 years. And what he was doing was he was sexually abusing the girls on the Olympic teams and at a college, the University of Michigan, where he used to work there. And he was sexually abusing these little girls. It's despicable. They brought each one up to tell their story in front of the judge, and it took 2 weeks to get the girls, all of them, to talk. Now, the Olympics are going to do an independent investigation. Some of the people have quit at the University of Michigan, and I believe they're going to find that there were complaints made, and that the Olympics and University of Michigan was very, very lax in doing anything about it. I believe they knew about it, and I believe they swept it under the rug for the sake of not causing waves, and now it's a huge deal. But that happened this week. I'm sorry, I had 3, not 4. And the next one is Trump has kind of, and I've been talking about this DACA deal and what a master stroke I think Trump did, and I still think he completely is outmaneuvering the Democrats. All of us on the right were kind of sad when he didn't just get rid of DACA and kick him out of the country, but he took that, he threw it back to Congress, and said, "You have 6 months to deal with it, or I will." And that comes up in March, and now we can see that what a beautiful thing he was doing. He was setting them up, trying to get something out of nothing from them legislatively. And if they do nothing, he wins because he's going to go ahead and get rid of it anyway. And he can blame it on them politically because he said, "Hey, I gave you 6 months and you didn't do anything. This is on your head, not mine." This whole DACA thing was started illegally by Obama. I'm just getting rid of it. I gave you an opportunity to fix it and you chose not to. So this week, he outmaneuvered him once again. Now remember, the Democrats shut down the government for 2 days, and Trump outmaneuvered them on that over this DACA deal. So they come back, they're yelling and screaming about it, and now this week, that was last week. This week, Trump takes the offensive, and he puts forth a compromise. Now, the reason he put forth the compromise is not because he expected them to take it. He expected them to refuse it, which they did right out of hand. But because they refused it, he can now say, "Hey, there was 800,000. I was willing to give you 1,000,008 to stay here free, and you refused it. I was willing to give them. I was willing to give you exactly what you wanted, plus an extra million, plus a path to citizenship, not just legal status. And you turned me down. And all I wanted in return was to end chain migration, which all Americans are against anyway, cut the green cards in half, finance the wall into a trust fund, not a promise to pay, but actually give me the money and I'll put it into a trust fund so that the money's there, and in lottery migration. That's all you had to do, and you could have saved 1.5 million people. Master stroke. The left continues to be baffled by Trump, and Trump just continues to run circles around them. I think it's awesome. I think Trump has got. They are just. They will never figure Trump out. He is running circles around them. Success begets success begets success. The Democrats are imploding. The liberals have no place to go. They have no. The one thing they had was DACA, and Trump just took that right off the table for the Democrats coming up in the 2018 midterm elections. He yanked that right off the table, right out from under him, and they got nothing. The Democrats got nothing. All they got going into the 2018 is this: we hate Trump. That's all they got. The economy's doing great. Trump offered to negotiate with them on DACA. Foreign policy is doing great. The trade is doing great. Unemployment is doing great. Everything is going great. The Democrats are imploding and they got nothing. And they still have not learned about Trump. Well, that's about all I wanted to talk about. Thank you. Oh, by the way, I do want to say uh, this program and all the other programs we do are sponsored by Prayer Box Ministry. You can go over to our website if you'd like to find out a little bit more about who we are and what we do. You can find us on www.prayerboxministry.org. That's org.org. That website was designed to be an interactive website. You can watch videos, join a prayer club, listen to our programs, have somebody read the Bible to you. There's a lot to do over there. You can spend a lot of time over there and never get through it all. So go over there and check us out. That's prayerboxministry.org. So you have a great week. I look forward to next week when we talk about this week in politics.